Hurry up. Actually, would you mind grabbing me water?
Oh, hey, would you grab me a
While
water?
you're there.
I don't think she heard me.
Do you want a water?
Okay.
I'll just introduce the topic and then you can introduce yourselves.
Whoever needs it.
Oh, I gotta sign all this stuff. Some time. Make sure I have everything.
All right, everybody ready?
Yes.
All right, good evening and welcome to the regularly scheduled Evans City Council work session for October 15, 2024. First item on our agenda is the City of Greeley Mobility Development Plan, and we'll hear from staff.
Ty Bresky, Public Works and Utilities Director. So I'm going to present the City of Greeley Public Works folks here. They'll introduce themselves and then be presenting on the Mobility Development Plan, seeking your feedback. So. You're good.
Good evening, Mayor Clark and members of City Council. Thank you for having us tonight. As I think you all are aware, Greeley Evans Transit serves both Evans and Greeley, and so as we move forward with our update to our mobility development plan, input from this council and your residents has been an important part of that. So tonight we're excited to bring forward to you an update on, as I mentioned, our Greeley mobility development plan. This plan, which Hannah and Michelle will go into more detail, is one of the first tasks from the Greeley and Go Transportation Master Plan that was adopted by a City of Greeley Council in March of 2023, and as well as components of Evans' adopted Transportation Master Plan that was adopted in 2022. Key thing with that, coordination was a big part of that effort as well. We actually, both communities used the same consultants, and we're both tied in and coordinating on that. So next slide, please. Tonight we'll provide a brief overview of Greeley on the Go Transportation Master Plan, outline how it relates to the Mobility Development Plan, and provide an update on the plan, and most importantly, garner feedback from you and answer any questions you may have. With that said, I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to Hannah.
Good evening, Council. So as Will alluded, we really wanted to build off of the efforts of the Greeley on the Go Transportation Master Plan to create actionable next steps for our mobility system and services. And due to the large alignment between the vision of the Mobility Development Plan and Greeley on the Go, we maintained that vision with consent from our steering committee. Which includes your staff member, Mark Oberschmidt, you may be familiar with. From that vision, staff with feedback from the steering committee and public outreach developed customized goal areas to guide the mobility plan development, which you can see here on the screen. Components of the mobility system and community access goal include a safe, accessible, and reliable mobility network that fosters transportation choice and enables access to more and varied opportunities, and a well-connected and inviting transportation network that provides seamless and integral local, regional, and interregional mobility options. As it relates to funding and strategic investment, this goal area includes an economically vibrant and resilient mobility network built on strategic investment that fosters community trust through transparent and inclusive decision-making, and a well-maintained mobility network operating in a state of good repair that is strategically planned and funded while bolstering infrastructure resilience. Related to the environment and technology goal includes an innovative, flexible, resilient, and adaptive mobility network that embraces change and integrates new and emerging technologies, as well as mobility solutions that improve air quality and reduce transportation greenhouse gas emissions while improving health outcomes. And lastly, the goal related to information and education includes a well-informed and engaged community where residents can easily access information about mobility options and real-time information, empowering them to access their preferred transportation options. These goal areas are directly related to our plan objectives, which will be discussed in more detail on the next slide. With the plan's vision and goals identified, staff, along with the steering committee, which consisted of a cross-section of city board members, city staff, business owners, students, and human services, including Evans staff, like I mentioned, solidified the plan's objectives based off of Greeley on the Go's mobility umbrella, which is displayed on the screen. This framework integrates all mobility components to advance the city's mobility vision and goals. Furthermore, outlining near and long-term scenarios that provide for a roadmap to strategically guide staff to enhance and expand mobility for all residents in Greeley and Evans. So, as you can see, we've been working on this plan for some time, and as you can see, we are approximately halfway through this planning efforts. A few of the key objective areas include inventorying the existing mobility system. This includes reviewing related plans and policies, such as Evans transportation plan, grants and funding, the GET system review and data analysis, socioeconomic data, and the analysis of short trips to understand potential locations for new services such as microtransit, micromobility, and car share services. Building on the Greeley on the Go vision and creating those customized goals that I just reviewed, then we ensured that future technologies and trends were being considered. And with that, we created scenarios that will include all concepts within the mobility umbrella to expand mobility choice. And we developed, and in our next steps, we will develop a roadmap that includes action, strategies, and associated performance measures to guide decision-making and implementation over the next 10 years. And with that, we will capitalize on Greeley's innovative approach, testing solutions through things like pilot projects, applying for funding, integrating technology, building on recently completed transportation systems management and operations, or the TISMO plan. Next slide, thank you. So obviously a huge part of community planning is our stakeholder and community engagement. So we've really built our plan off of this. We wanted to include several phases, and we are currently in phase 2. Phase 1 served as an opportunity to gather additional input on mobility gaps and needs here in Greeley and Evans. This included public outreach components such as Speak Up Greeley, social media push, flyers on our buses to reach out to our existing ridership. Additionally, the team met with stakeholders, which included the steering committee with various members from agencies and partners from the region, and we even interviewed and surveyed our Greeley Evans Transit drivers who are very familiar with our existing services. In phase 2, which will facilitate the most robust phase of our public engagement, we have a goal of gathering feedback from the public and stakeholders about our near and long-term scenarios and a vision for the future. We are collecting comments and input to inform recommendations in a detailed 10-year implementation plan. A few outreach events that we've done this year include Friday Fest. We went to the Greeley Evans Transit Transportation Center, and then a few weeks ago we went to a Dream Play Build event, and this week we'll be at the Greeley Rec Center and the Family Funplex. Phase 3 will be an opportunity to bring back the draft to the public and to City Council and ask for feedback to ensure the plan aligns with community needs and goals. Now I'll be handing it off to Michelle to talk through Mobility Hub elements, routes, and our next steps.
Hi, thank you for having us. I'm Michelle Johnson. I'm the Mobility Manager for GET Transportation. Next slide. So we'll go through the integrated vision for how we came up with the idea to integrate neighborhoods, community, and region. Residents and visitors need to be in a seamless connect from their neighborhoods to the community to the regional resources. Mobility hubs provide the central node of mobility options for them to choose from. More specifically, and as shown in this slide, the Mobility Hub framework will provide the opportunity to integrate the mobility umbrella elements to improve access and improve mobility choices in Greeley. Within the following slides, you'll see how the mobility hubs and the elements are shown on this slide will play a key role in connecting the transit system, broken down into 3 tiers. 1, focusing on the neighborhood connections. 2, connecting the neighborhoods to the local transit system. And 3, provides an opportunity to connect regionally. Next slide. Oh, good. neighborhood mobility hub examples. When you think about mobility in Greeley, and specifically mobility hubs, it's important to notate that we are in alignment with the Imagine Greeley Comprehensive Plan and activity notes outlined in that plan. Neighborhood mobility hubs will play an important role in connecting the neighborhoods to the community system and expand to regional service. The example pictures here show within Imagine Greeley's neighborhood centers. These hubs will be integrated into the neighborhood streets and provide connectivity through components like car share, micromobility, and microtransit elements. It's important to reiterate that the mobility hubs are in context sensitivity and relate to the scale of the neighborhood, land use, and community needs. The community mobility hubs are larger in scale, often have direct access to fixed route bus service and additional mobility options. And finally, the regional mobility hubs will not only have connectivity to the local transit system, but also regional and intercity services. These services are only bolstered by other mobility options like microtransit, EV charging stations, and other connectivity elements. As we looked at both our short-term and long-term mobility network, you'll start to see the transition in our approach to see how we serve the community. Historically, the city has primarily served our community with only fixed route and paratransit services. As part of the mobility development plan, you'll see the shift to include additional mobility options like microtransit and micromobility. Some key elements of this proposed short-term scenario are Route 1 and Route 5, identified as premium transit or core service corridors, which will see a higher frequency and play a critical role in improving connecting within our community. Aligning with our community routes with our new merged regional mobility hub, utilizing microtransit on the east side of Greeley, and building out mobility hub networks to support mobility choices. The traditional fixed route and ADA service that we've provided in the previous years is really going to expand to include all sorts of mobility options. Long-term. As we look at our long-term focus, key elements on this slide will include transitioning key routes such as Route 1 and Route 5 to BRT level service, 15-minute or better frequency, extending BRT service to align with the growth and development to the west, improving frequencies on other community routes as ridership and development align, expanding microtransit on the west side of Greeley, and building out mobility hub network to support mobility choices. Some key points to highlight as we look at both the short and long-term scenarios are scenarios developed based on data collection and analysis, driver, stakeholder, and community input on gaps and needs, review analysis of socioeconomic data and future trends. Those are the scenarios that are out for review by the public and stakeholders. Pop-up events hosting focus groups and online input from Speak Up Greeley in September and October. Based on the input, these scenarios will be found and integrated into the draft mobility development plan with an associated implementation and financial plan. Bus stop standards based on the industry standards of a fourth of a mile is well served and a half a mile is served. We anticipate reviewing stops after approving the routes to meet these standards in the context of each route and built environment. We will aim to provide access to existing active transportation connections such as trails and bike paths. Our next step is, as it relates to the next step, you can see that there's a significant amount of public involvement going forward related to this plan. Additional details on phase 2 can be found in the appendix of this presentation, but components include pop-up events at UNC, a Downtown Friday Fest, and at Center Place. The feedback will be critical as we work to finalize the plan and bring it back to you for adoption in early January. And we'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Great. Thank you so much for the presentation. That was really great. I do have a question for you. I know, Will, you and I have been a part of the MPO for quite a while now. Is this in collaboration with the MPO, or is this going to be a separate entity from the MPO?
So just to clarify your question, so from a planning perspective, thank you. From a planning perspective, we're working hand in hand with the MPO. Case in point, Hannah and Michelle are, there's the 34, the link NOCO, right? And so if we go back to, I'm gonna go back here if that's okay, you can see on this as well as the short term, there is the US 34 route service there. And so we're working hand in hand with the MPO to answer your question.
I knew that. I just wanted to put it on the
You're
record.
good.
So people knew that. The other question is that also going to provide the NOCO ride, where if you need a ride and it's not one of those, they can still come out and pick you up from your home, take you to medical appointments, et cetera, that, because I know some of those areas that's not served by GET, and a lot of those individuals that don't have transportation need to get to appointments or whatever their needs are. So that option will still be available as well.
Definitely. And I think we're really working as a system, and I think regionally even beyond that. So one of the things that you'll see rolling out that Michelle and her team are rolling out here in the next probably 6 months is there's an application called MAS, or Mobility as a Service app. And so much like you do now for Google, if you want to go from here to Denver, right, it's going to give you options. And so the Mobility as a Service app will really facilitate that at a higher level even than Google. And so you can say, I want to go from the Evans Community Center to Center Place, or to wherever it may be. And it actually pulls up a list of options, everything from driving to, as we, look at, we're doing a pilot, as I think Hannah kind of briefly touched on, for scooters. It'll pull up scooters, it'll pull up Uber, Lyft, really all the mobility options, and that way people have the ability to choose the option that best fits their needs. And it allows them to prioritize that service and how it's ranked. If somebody's on a budget, then it's going to show them what the most cost-effective method is. If somebody's really concerned about exercise, like I should probably be getting more exercise, they could burn calories, or maybe what you're, from an environmental perspective, what type of greenhouse gases you're putting out. And so it'll outline all that type of stuff and then facilitate the payment as well.
I think this is a great concept. I know it's been in conception for a few years at the MPO level, and it's good to see. We do have a lot of people that, especially in Greeley and Evans, that commute outside of our communities and go to places like Fort Collins, Wellington, and/or Loveland, or be outside of the area there to work. And this is really a good option for people to, reduce that greenhouse gas, use a different method of transportation, and reduce the footprint that they're leaving as they commute. So it's really good to see this finally starting to come to fruition.
I'd just like to expand on just a little bit. So if you go back to the first one, so when we look at Greeley and what we can do in the next 0 to 2 years, and you look at Evans down there, so those other the light blue and the purple, it all comes down to mobility options and resources. What kind of service do people really, will they utilize? What's important to them? The scooters is going to be a pilot project that we're going to implement at the end of this month. And Hannah's worked really hard on working with Spin, who is going to be our scooter provider. And that really is going to be the first mile, last mile to connect them to the routes. Where Route 5 is on the purple side over there, that's the east side of Greeley. We have a route over there that's not very used. So what we're doing in that area is we're looking at microtransit. So we'll have microtransit zones that will really incorporate the people from their homes to the neighborhood hub, and then the neighborhood hub will connect them to our community routes. And then the community routes at the one down right off of Center Place will be one of our first mobility hubs, and they all interconnect so that you can get across Greeley with maybe a transfer, but it's not going to take the full hour it does on some of the routes, because I think that's what we heard. People want to move around the community a lot faster than they're moving around now, and we want to give them options. Some people will ride fixed routes, some people will ride the microtransit, some people will ride the scooters. So as we grow Greeley, it's important to grow our mobility options, and it's not just traditional fixed route and ADA service any longer. It's meeting all the needs of the individuals in the community.
I'm glad that we have Mark Overschmidt at the table on this, and it's really good to make sure that we're partnering together on this because it does affect both communities and everything. So it's great for us to have a seat at the table, and I'm glad he's part of it, and we can make this finally happen. So thank you, appreciate it.
I think this is fantastic. I'm a big proponent of diversifying our transportation options. I am the vice chair of the Regional Air Quality Council, so I sit with a lot of people from MPO there, and we do a lot of control strategies when it comes to like ozone and emissions. So this is great. But also, one of the things that I would love to see, even, down the road in Evans, it's seeing those community hubs as well. Because when you think of transportation, you think of kind of bringing down those costs for people. And then typically people that tend to use, mass transit want to go to places, affordable places. And those are specifically parks. We have beautiful parks in the city of Evans, and I would love to see those connections with, those options of transportation, whether it's a scooter, whether it's a community hub to take you to specific areas. I had a conversation today. I was at the UNC State of Address, and she lives in Windsor, and she loves going to our Prairie View Park. She's like, it is a beautiful park. I love going there. So clearly people from the outside are coming into Evans to come to our parks. So I would love to see that connection. But in addition to that, we do have a lot of our community members that leave Evans to go to work at, for example, JBS. They do, they have specific time frames that they go in. So the really early time slot, there's no transportation for that. And so we also have to look at that, at the early birds, and see how we can connect them to the places they need to go. So those are things that it would be nice to look into. But I do like the community hubs because I've been bringing up also people that work there tend to carpool. So also in addition to that, the messaging on how we're messaging transportation.
There's actually, and so to piggyback on that, if I may too, that I forget the microphone. With that Mobility as a Service app, there's actually VanGo or Vanpool software and tie-ins that can pull into that as well. So it can facilitate those type of connections and, bring people together that may be going to the same location. So.
Any other additional questions, comments?
Well, I just had one question about the scooters. Seems like 5 years ago, all the big municipalities were saying, hey, let's get these scooters and let's get them in fast. And now they're all saying, get out of here because they're having so many problems with people getting hit on the scooters. How did we land on that being the solution?
I'm happy to chat a little bit about this scooters. So 5 years ago is kind of when we first started seeing these shared micromobility companies being introduced into communities. And frankly, a lot of those communities were guinea pigs that didn't necessarily have the right regulatory frameworks to control the use of those businesses on public space. So we've done a lot of research into the best methods of how to, have that public-private partnership with our provider. And that's why we're doing a pilot, which, like Michelle said, we're hoping to launch at the end of this month, that will go through the end of 2025. And that's that green area you can see on the map. We have a pretty conservative, a pretty small pilot area where we can take key findings about, are the regulations that we think are going to work well, is that actually going to produce the result we want? Like I said, we've done a lot of research into that, but until you have the scooters on the ground, we might not be able to anticipate every issue that comes along with that. So, and then we will be taking those findings to our city council. Our pilot area, we only have authority within Greeley, so whether or not Evans wants to participate is kind of up to you all. And we're happy to share our findings. We're happy to share the regulatory framework that we're doing here in Greeley. And I'm sure that the micromobility provider that we've selected would love to expand into Evans if it's something you all want, but that's a decision that you all get to make. But yeah, we're happy to share those findings, and luckily we're no longer the guinea pigs, and we have really good tested regulations that we can now test in our communities.
So Boise, Idaho is a really good example that uses the scooters. I've been there multiple times, and it is so easy to hop on a scooter, and you can get from one end of Boise to the other using the trails, using the bike lanes and everything. They might be somebody maybe to reach out and see how they really use that model, but it works fantastic there. I mean, don't even need to take an Uber anywhere half the time. Just hop on a scooter and go. It's the best way, but I really think Evan should definitely be a part of that pilot program for the scooters. So, Councilmember Neal, I know you can help putting your hand up, so.
Well, what I've noticed over the years here is, we used to have brochures that, detailed the routes, and now that's all gone, and apparently it's all gone from the shelters, according to some people. I've not checked into that, physically by myself, but, some people have said that they can't figure out a route to get around. The other comment I have is a little bit off of mass transit mobility, but, I'm gonna mention again, because I got three Captain Greeley people here, that, the mobility and safety, could greatly be increased, improved on 8th Avenue, if you could convince CDOT to help you build a roundabout between 22nd Street and about 24th Street, right there in front of Fontas. That, and the pizza cooks used to tell me that they average watching at night at least 2 wrecks a week. I love it. I agree. I haven't been much on roundabouts, but I've become convinced of their safety and their improvement in traffic flow, driving back and forth to Lovell.
100% agree with you, and we've actually done some preliminary design with a roundabout there. But to your point, we've got to work with CDOT, and actually we're looking at the whole 8th Avenue corridor all the way up to the bypass where that starts. So 100% agree with you.
And I can bring you ride guides tomorrow. We just received all of our new ride guides that reflected all of the time changes. Because what we did is we added another bus to Route 5, so the times were different. But I can have somebody drop some ride guides off out here. And they're on all of our bus shelters as well.
Perfect, thank you. Any other additional questions, comments?
I just have, clarification. Good seeing you again, Will. It's been a few years. Thank you for bringing this to us. On your routes going out on Highway 34, are those drops at, like CDOT park and rides?
Go ahead.
So if you go out, there's a couple, I'll talk to a couple of them. There's the park and ride at 257 and Highway 34 right now. What we actually envision as we start, as I think you've probably seen in the newspaper, right? There's a lot of conversation about the west side and so on. And so one of the things we're having a serious conversation at and looking at is having a mobility hub, much like we are planning on by Center Place between 35th and 47th. And so high level, very preliminary, but what we've talked about is doing like a parking garage with a mobility hub there to facilitate that broader development there as well. So I don't see us using currently the one, or in the future, the one at 257 and 34, but so.
And I know when I was on CTAB, I mentioned our park and ride over here on South Evans, which is totally underutilized. And surely that could be utilized in the future too.
Definitely. One of the things we're actually having an interesting conversation on with some private providers for DIA service is utilizing, starting off at the mobility hub, and then I think that could fit in really nicely into the route to DIA. So.
I think it'd be nice visibility for Evans.
Yep.
Absolutely.
So,
Great.
all right, thank you. Good seeing you. Thank you.
Here.
All right, well, all right, well, thank you so much. We really appreciate your time and bringing this to us. It's, like I said, been a long time coming. Glad to see it finally happen, and I'm glad we have a seat at the table, and we'll continue to hopefully partner up and make this thing a great thing for the community. So thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you. You guys have a good
Great
night.
seeing you again, Will.
Same here. All
right, so I know we have an ERA meeting this evening. I would suggest just to value everybody's time, since we don't have a huge agenda, we have about a half hour. I'd like to just go ahead and go into the ERA meeting, get that done since there's only one item, and then we'll go straight into the regular meeting and get that taken care of. So, all right, we'll head up to the dais. Everybody.